All
It
right. Does
looks
this look
good.
good? Great. Well, we will dive in there. There might be some people trickling in, which is fine, but excited to be here for another session. I think our last one was in October. So we had an autumn theme, and I don't think this will come as any surprise. Our theme for December session is snowflakes. I don't know where everyone is located, but hopefully someone's in sunny southern Florida or California or Hawaii. But I think the majority of our country is a little chilly right now. Um, I am in the Midwest, and today was a high of 11 degrees. So very, very cold. And I think this theme is nice for a couple reasons. One is, you know, cold is probably not enjoyable for a lot of us, myself included, but there are some beautiful aspects to it. And one of the things that comes out of cold or coldness is these beautiful structures of snowflakes. So let's go through a couple slides and then we'll start our art experience. Here are some quotes that I really like. Snowflakes are one of nature's most fragile things, but just look what they can do when they stick together. Of course, snowflakes are pretty fleeting, which I think is a kind of ephemeral kind of thought. You can see them. Sometimes they land on your hand. You might have a light that hits it, and you can see all those particles yourself without a microscope, without a photograph, but you really only get to view it for a few seconds, right, before it melts with the heat of your hand. Um, and then it also kind of makes you think about each one of us, and life itself is pretty fragile, but when we join together, humanity has more power and more that it can do. The next quote is: "The snowflake, never losing its individual form, melts away only to be reborn, always returning to its own inherent crystalline form. It's a cycle of returning to the essence, beautiful, unique, yet part of the whole." So, with today's session, as always, we want to practice thinking of being in the present moment, which means forgetting some of the small things of life, of our day, of our work day, of the nuances, of the to do lists, and really just be here and now with what we're doing and focusing on kind of relaxing and releasing all of those other thoughts to focus on the present moment. This is a really interesting kind of art piece. This was a photograph series by Wilson A. Bentley. This was done in the 19th century, so 1800s. And these are actual photographs. And the technique he used to photograph these actual snowflakes is not very far off from the technique still used today. Um, I thought it was really interesting because we always hear this thing, each snowflake is different, right? It's one of the kind of eloquent and artsy sort of things we think about when we think about snowflakes, that every time you draw a snowflake, it's never going to be the same, or every time you see a snowflake, every single one is different, millions and billions of them. And so this is proof in the pudding, so to speak, the figgy pudding, if you will, that each snowflake that he captured is entirely different. Um, the one thing that I thought was interesting when I learned a little bit more about snowflakes is a snowflake is actually called an ice crystal, and they can form into many different shapes. But because of the time that they spend floating through the air, the humidity and the temperature of the air, you get different shapes, but they all are going to have six sides to them. So you'll never get, an 8 or a 12 or a dodecahedron type snowflake. It's always going to have six sides. But just look at all the intricate changes of how these snowflakes look so vastly different from each other. So again, today we're going to take some time for reflection and try to think about some of these aspects that we're talking about here as we dive in. Allow your mind to wander and kind of remove your worries and thoughts from the surface and focus on our art that we'll be doing today. So you can use anything, whether it's pencil, pen, marker. I have three that I'm going to use for mine, just a regular old pencil, a blue Sharpie, and a black Sharpie. And I want to see your inspiration for snowflakes for this session. And I'll try to show you my screen as well. In a couple minutes, we'll start to share. I know we started just a few minutes after 6:30 Central Time, so we'll make sure we have our full time, and we always go a little bit past. I don't want anyone to feel rushed. Take your time because we are still in the present moment. We'll take some minutes to share. Everyone can continue to work on their work. I will start, and then anyone who wants to can share. But again, this is always a free to share, free to not share. You don't have to share your creation. So I know we have limited time, but this is what I came up with. Let me see if I can find my screen. See if this is in the screen. So really the only premise here was 6 sides if you wanted to make it an accurate snowflake. But of course, we have free liberty as artists to make things not an accurate snowflake. So I tried to stay with 6 of sides because that's what happens with the humidity and barometric pressure. But a couple things that I was thinking of when I was doing this was two things. When I think of snowflakes, I think of how intricate they are, very, very complex, so many lines. And I tried to put some of those pictures up as we were drawing, but really so many lines and structures in a snowflake for such a tiny little structure. And then as I was doing this, I like intricacy, I love complexity, but it's really hard to mimic that, especially free and spontaneously. And I think we all lend and tend to be a little bit more regimented and organized and follow the pattern. And so sometimes that can actually make it hard to make an organized structure because most of our things that we do are more free form. It's nice to kind of escape the confines. So I found it actually difficult to make a regimented, symmetric piece. And as you can see, mine's not symmetric. It's, maybe close in some areas, but it's really not because it's difficult in life to have symmetry. And then the other thing I thought about as I was making mine is how much it reminds me of a spider web, a cobweb. So then that got me thinking about how nature tends to replicate itself. Um, so those are just some of the thoughts that I was going through in my head. And the nice thing that I like about this is your snowflake never has to really be done because they're such intricate things. You have 30 minutes here to see what we came up with, but this is something you could keep working on for an hour, 2 or 3, and your structure's just going to get more intricate and beautiful. So if you want to show, I know these are unfinished because again, these are complex little structures I wanted to inspire us today. But if you want to share, happy to see your pieces.
Is there anyone who wants to share? Otherwise I can. All right, Tom.
First of all, Jen, I love your snowflake, and I thought it looks like a
Oh,
spider web, but I wasn't going to say anything because,
you thought it was a spider web too?
well, I thought about, I mean, I kill them with a broom when they're out
Yeah.
front. But yeah, it looks like because it's got the weaves in the middle
I was
between the
going to
print.
ask everyone if they, while drawing their own, also had the vibe when looking at their own picture. Am I drawing a spider web or a cobweb? I was like, how? Because, we all doodle when we're young. We draw snowflakes, right? So then as I'm doing this, I'm like, why does this look more like a spider web than a snowflake? They seem
It's much,
different, but there's shared similarities.
it's much prettier. I, before I logged on tonight, I go out front and get my mail because the mailman doesn't get here till like 7:15. I don't know what his
Oh
route is,
my
but
gosh.
and he's got a little headlamp on his head because it gets dark in Philadelphia at 4:30. But he's an older guy. He's got like the headlamp and everything, and the
Gosh.
thing to repel the dogs, and he carries all these packages because it's Christmas. But um, I saw him out front. I grabbed my mail, and I saw all the lights were lit on the people's houses across the street, which is kind of what it looks like here. Everybody puts lights
Oh,
on the roof and down the
yeah.
side, and they somehow drape them down the trees. I just put them on my front door, just a few lights because I'm not a ladder person at my age, but people all decorate on my street and it's very colorful. They decorate their hedges and everything. And it's just,
Yeah.
no matter what your faith is or what holiday you celebrate, I call them holiday lights because they celebrate a joyous season where people seem to be a little happier and there's a lot of traffic and they're shopping and it's the end of the year and we're kind of winding things up in the office and people are taking time off with family. Family's the most important thing in the world than work, but I just walked outside and it just did my heart good to see red and green and lights and they're all LEDs now because we have to save energy. But it was just, I know I couldn't deal with drawing a snowflake. And if I say the word snow, I'll have to get out the snow blower. And I haven't used it in 2 seasons in Philadelphia. We haven't had any snow. But they're talking about coming up soon. And I hate it because
Yeah.
it's pretty when it comes down, but it's not pretty when you have to drive somewhere or you have
I
to scrape
I
your car off.
agree.
And you're probably in the Midwest somewhere, right?
Yep, yep. I'm just east of Chicago. So,
My friends in Madison, she texted me a picture. It's 0 degrees there.
yeah,
She couldn't get her front door open because the drifts came up to her apartment and like it's a picture of her dog is trying to get out of the house
yep.
and I'm thinking I know a little west of Chicago. I was just out there recently. You don't want to go there in the winter because I'm not hardened enough to deal with 0 degrees. But thank you for your presentation. I'm taking
Oh.
too much time. Thank you.
No, I appreciate all that. I think that, that's why in addition to just being a cold winter month that I chose the snowflake is because it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? You sometimes meet people who say I love snow, but when you do meet those few people, they really just love the appearance of it, that everything's kind of sparkly and twinkling and the light reflects off of it in a muted way, not like a bright blinding you kind of way. But most people will say, well, snow is kind of pretty, but they hate it, right? Because it's freezing and it's hard to move and it makes life difficult. So it's one of those double-edged swords because even that's life in general, right? There's always going to be difficult parts, but we need to try to find the beauty in our present moment. So it's like making the best out of a bad situation. It's freezing out here, a high of 11. It's probably 7 degrees outside right now. So just getting to your car, to your front door is painful, but try to find something positive, which is the beauty of nature. And if we get snow, that those little particles you might see just outside your window are something nice to reflect upon. So I do like your thought about all of those things that made you think about it, and totally fine to not do a snowflake today because we're still looking at all of the holiday lights in the season.
That's great. We're at time, but if anyone else wants to share, I'm fine with going a couple minutes over. All right, well, I'm going to try and share my screen just so I can put that donate up again. And then I just want to tell you about some upcoming events. We have ongoing support groups, so definitely go to the Miles for Migraine website for those. The holidays can be wonderful. They can also be challenging, so get the support you need. Our next mindful event is on December 26th, and Lisa Benson will be leading us in creative writing, so that should be great. This Sunday at 3:30 Eastern Time, the social event, Holiday Feast and Cocktails is going to happen, so that should be a lot of fun too. And it's really early, but since Dr. Evan participated in it, and I did too, and maybe some other people, Act Now is an advocacy training program, and they're already accepting applications for next August. So keep that in mind. It's a great training and way to grow your advocacy skills. And I don't know, so maybe go to the website and just check. I know last year we had to reapply or re-sign up for the mindfulness series. So just look for I suspect Helen will send an email if that needs to happen, but just have that in the back of your mind. And thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Dr. Evan, for another wonderful, really calming, and it really did. It was hard for me, like you were
Yeah, the
saying.
sessions they're short, but you feel like they could go much longer. But that's the nice thing, hopefully some nice inspiring pictures to look at, and everyone can work on whether it's a snowflake or not, or something else that's inspiring about, the cold weather, which most of the US is in. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad everyone enjoyed.
Yeah, it was really the challenge of it made it that much easier, if that makes sense, for me to be more mindful. Like I kept saying, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I did try and stick with the 6 sides, but other than that, like just
Yeah.
go.
They are wonderful little complex little guys.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. And hopefully we'll see you on Sunday.
Wonderful. Bye all.
Bye.
Thanks, Dr.
Stay
Jen. Thank
warm.
you.
Bye, Tom.
Thank you.